There she goes.
All right. Welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast. And this is our second episode. And we are four authors who write in science fiction and fantasy genres. Our plan ultimately is to each week interview a fifth author about what's working for them, what isn't working for them, sort of get their ideas on marketing. As we get started, though, the first 4 weeks we're going to interview each other, basically so viewers can get to know who we are and so we can work out all the bugs without wasting somebody else's time. So this week we are interviewing Joseph Lallo, author of the book of Deacon Trilogy, among other books. But let me do some quick introductions first of all, so you know who we are. I'm Laura Kerwin, and I am the newbie of the group, and I am the author of, and I'm going to show it this time because last week the internet connection issues got in the way. I'm writing the Urban Fantasy City of Eldritch series. This is the first book, Impervious. The second book is hopefully going to be out by November 15th, although at the rate my editor's going, I might be able to get it out by November 1st. So I'm pretty excited about that. Anyway, so somebody, Jeffrey, tell us about yourself.
My name is Jeffrey Poole. I'm the author of the Baking Chronicles trilogy. I'm also the author of the Tales of Lantari series. Lighthearted, epic fantasy type stories there. Feel-good stories type of thing there. I live in, at the moment, not so sunny Lake Havasu City, Arizona, although I am not complaining. And I also have a strong computer tech background, so I am the tech brains of the outfit.
Lindsay?
All right, hey guys, Lindsay Baroker, full-time fantasy / steampunk / whatever I feel like working on this week author, and still here in Arizona, and it was only 72 today, so it was very cold up here in the mountains.
Yes, that's because you're way up north, not down here in the burning deserts like Jeffrey and I are.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, well, so now that we've got us out of the way, we would like to lead into our guest author for the evening, and that is Joseph Lallo. And I've already talked very briefly about the Book of Deacon trilogy, so Joe, why don't you take it away and tell us, I guess give us a little introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself, what sort of things what genres you work in, and kind of your primary works, and then we can move into asking questions.
All right, well, my name is Joseph Lallo, Joseph R. Lallo, if it's on the cover of a book, and I wrote the Book of Deacon trilogy, which is my big series, and there's 3 books in that because it's a trilogy. And then there's a follow-up and a prequel to it, and a couple other things are going to be coming along the way. And I've also got a sci-fi series, which I'm calling Big Sigma, but everyone just calls Bytes Past Gemini because that's the first book in the series. The other 2 books are Unstable Prototypes, which came out in 2012, and Artificial Evolution, which is coming out in December.
Okay.
And I've also got 2 other books that are both NaNoWriMo experiments. One was a superhero satire comedy thing called The Other 8. And
yeah, I started reading that today.
Did you?
Yeah,
Hope you
I
like
really
it.
enjoyed the scene on it took me a second to go, wait, who are these people and where are they going? And then you started describing the costumes, and it was clear. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and the other one is steampunk called Free Wrench, which did, that could end up being another series of mine. And I live in Colonia, New Jersey. I'm a full-time writer now. I just became one at the beginning of September. Before that, I was in IT as well. And that's about it. That's Joe Lallo.
Congratulations on being able to quit your day job. That's very exciting.
Thank you very much.
You guys, as I said, this is our second episode. We're still sort of working out the bugs, and our general topic tonight was going to be, you were going to talk, Joe, about working with artists. You use a lot of original art in your book covers. Your website has a lot of links to fan art and professional artists you're working with, and also about merchandising. But I think we also wanted to talk generally, just kind of talk to you generally about your work and marketing efforts and just try to, just to get to know you a little better. So, Lindsay, Jeffrey, would you like to get started, or would you like me to jump in?
I've got my handy-dandy little hard-to-read purple notepad here. Let's see here. Okay, Joe, I've got a question for you. I've been asked before, with regards to my covers of the books, if it depicts scenes from the actual story itself. So my question for you is, do you think, are all your book covers depicting scenes from your stories, or are your covers depicting what you think fans want to see?
When I first started envisioning my very first covers were just the best I could manage, because I started off doing my own covers, and I didn't work out very well. But once I started really trying to get a decent cover, my original idea was to do a scene. I was going to have a scene from every book, and as I worked with an artist, he guided me away from that. And since then, I sort of feel like a cover should be representative of who and what is going on in the book, but it doesn't need to be a scene. It just sort of needs to set a tone. Like the cover of my first book features the main character in a way that she would not appear until the second book, but it's very much like the way the character should be represented. It's the sort of the overall. So yeah, I don't think it needs to be a scene. It just needs to set the scene, you know.
Okay. All right. Good deal. And okay, which ties into one of my other questions, which is the one I thought of earlier, thanks to Laura. Thank you, Laura. Is have you ever done a cover to one of your books, and then think about it and go, you know what? I really ought to try to professionally redo this cover, or else maybe it's setting the wrong tone. Have you ever had to go in and redo a cover, essentially re-release a book?
I have the original, the original, my first book of Deacon. I made my own cover, and I didn't even really have any Photoshop. I wasn't using Photoshop. I can't afford Photoshop, so I was using GIMP. But I didn't really have I followed a couple of tutorials, and it didn't look particularly good. But I honestly figured nobody would ever buy it. And then a couple of people did. So I redid my own cover, looking almost the same, except with more skill. And a few more people bought it. And then I finally a third redo of that cover was when I finally got an artist to make one, and it didn't, so that it would look like it was made by a professional as opposed to by the author. So technically, I had to relaunch my first book twice and my second book once, and then the third book started with its own cover, which is nice.
Oh, nice. And my third and final question also is, let's say you're a brand new author, you're getting ready to release, or you're thinking about releasing your first book. Would you recommend that they save up to try and get a professionally done cover? Or would you recommend that they actually take a stab at making their own cover and just say, hope that everything works out well?
I think you have to have a very realistic view of your ability to make a cover. Honestly, a cover does not have to be striking and incredible. It helps if it is. It just has to not look bad. So if you can make a decent cover, if your cover can look at least as, look at any paperback cover or a re-release of a classic, and you'll see they tend to be very, very simple. As long as it looks professional, then you can make your own. But if it's going to look like you made it, and ask some friends. If you have honest friends, they'll tell you whether or not it looks terrible. Either save the money and get a professional, and I really think a professional cover makes a huge difference, or there are places that have pre-made covers, there are template covers. I lean away from templates because I want my book to look like my book. I don't ever want to see a line of books on the screen and have two of them have the same imagery, because I would think either they're in the same series or something's going on if there's two different authors, two different books, but the same cover. So I like original covers.
Romance, then.
You'll
find the same embracing couple.
It's the same set of abs on 1,000
only
covers with different
5
backgrounds.
good couples out there, so.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, okay, so my final question is, when going to create a brand new cover, have you ever used any of the artists at Deviantart.com? Because that's where I found the artist that does my covers there, and she does a really good job, surprisingly affordable.
I have. All of my covers are done by a guy I found on DeviantArt, and I've looked for other artists for other things, and almost always I look on DeviantArt. They can be very, very affordable, especially if it's somebody who's just starting off.
Yeah, if he's wanting to build his resume or his portfolio up, then yeah, all I had to do is just essentially put a quick little request saying, "Hey, looking to new fantasy author, looking for a cover. Can you guys draw this?" Within 30 minutes, I had 50 different people saying, "Hey, I'll do it. Here's a link to my gallery." So, it ranged anywhere from $50 up to, I think, a little over 500. But yeah, it's quite reasonable. So.
Yep.
That's it for me.
Okay, can we go ahead and ask Joe? I think people might want to know about some of the success he's had to decide if it's worth listening to him on cover art. Just because the beard alone doesn't necessarily tell you anything.
Well, you know, it's distinguished.
I would like to start out. I'd like to maybe, Joe, if you could kind of tell us maybe when you first published, how many books you've sold. I mean, I know your first book has over 1,000 reviews on Amazon, and you know, especially I know you've done particularly well with that Book of Deacon series. So if you wanted to talk about like maybe what might have been some of the secrets to success there, you know, we all want the scoop.
All right. Well, the Book of Deacon series, how much? I've given away a lot. The first book in the Book of Deacon series is free, and I've given away probably over 100,000. I don't really have the exact numbers up, but I've given away a tremendous number. Oh, you know what? It's not up to date, but I can probably pull up some numbers from there. But I published it back in 2010. At the very beginning, the January 28th, 2010. So it's been up for a long time, and it sort of predated I don't want to say the entire ebook revolution, but it was very early on. So that helped a bunch, I'm sure. There weren't a tremendous number of permafrees on the market. But I've sold... for a while I was ranked in the top 100 fantasy authors, and I make an appearance every now and then if a good ad runs. But let me see if I can get the numbers for you. And I definitely, the Book of Deacon Trilogy, despite the fact I've written at this point 10 books, and 9 of them are already out, the Book of Deacon Trilogy is my big earner. The second and third book make 80% of the money that I make. So when I stopped keeping track, which is around April, I had given away 279,000 books.
Oh my God.
And I had sold, strangely, 275 of those books. Every now and then you'll see a sale of a free book, which is confusing.
I've seen that too. It's weird.
Yeah. And then between the others that I was keeping track of, I have sold 103,000 books combined for everything else. So did pretty good.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Again, my big earner are books I came out with at the beginning of 2011 and the middle of 2011. So I had to try to keep the trilogy alive, and that's a question that a lot of people want to ask, is how those two books, which have been out for so long, have continued to rank as they have. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of things. Again, book one's been perma-free forever. It's been perma-free for years and years. So it tends to stick around in the near the top of the bestseller list. I have a good cover, and I think that really helps.
Yeah, you do.
If you see a thumbnail of my cover, you know, particularly amongst, you know, perhaps covers that weren't quite as striking, it'll get you to click on it, and that's, you know, people judge a book by its cover. But the other thing is, I sort of nurture the trilogy. Every new thing that I want to try, I try with the Book of Deacon. So if I'm going to try a BookBub ad, I'll try it with the Book of Deacon. And if I'm going to try to do a book trailer, I'm going to do it with the Book of Deacon series. So every single advertising punch or success I've ever had has been with the first book of the trilogy. And then people, you know, if 100 people buy or download it, then maybe 10 people will buy the next one, and then maybe 9 of those will buy the third. So I keep on pumping the first book in the series, which is an easy sell because it's free, and it sort of continues to draw traffic to the other two. And the other thing, and this wasn't on purpose, I wrote the entire trilogy back to back. I didn't release any of it until I'd already written all of it. So originally it was just one giant mush of words, and I chopped it up into 3 books, and that led to the first book ending in a really intense cliffhanger. Well, it wasn't hanging from a cliff, it was sort of underneath a cliff. But so the first book, which is free, and people, you know, well, I'll give it a try, it ends with people biting their nails, and then they angrily buy the second book, and then hopefully they'd be, you know, invested enough that they would move on to the third. So I think it's sort of a combination of the cover, the cliffhanger, the long-term free, and the fact that every advertising chance I take is with that series.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm all plotting over here.
I was doing the same thing.
But I'm actually planning to redo my own covers, so I'm kind of watching and seeing what's doing really well out there right now. So like a lot of authors, I didn't have a lot of money getting started, and so I did the photo manipulation kind of route, and it served me well. It's well branded, if nothing else. All the books look the same, but I do want to try something like I've got some artists doing maybe more of a character base, like the characters just standing there looking badass in the front of the cover. The ones I see that are doing really well, that's often the case. But I've also seen I forget the author's name, but there's somebody out there with castles or a big epic fantasy kind of landscape that sold really well. And a lot of other ones, like I think George R. R. Martin's, are all like a picture of a sword or a symbol or something.
Yeah, they're very consistent though. You can tell what it is without
What's your opinion on like what's better especially for fantasy and maybe sci-fi too, if you want to talk about that, because I know you have a sci-fi series, like an illustration, custom illustration, or maybe the symbol type of thing?
I really like illustrations. I love working with artists. So, that's sort of why this is the topic. But I like doing an illustration, characters particularly. But the cover of Free Wrench is sort of a setting, like a vista. You can, as long as it's if it's a landscape, if it's a really interesting one, if it's one that it's evocative, then I think a landscape is a good idea. The symbol is good if it's sort of, I feel like that's better if it's established. Like people know the Game of Thrones books, and they're gonna what do you call it? Hunger Games. Hunger Games has got symbolism is very the emblems are very built into the setting, so that can really have a really strong punch and be very recognizable. But I think it's easier for well-established series to do that. So you tend, as a writer, to build your setting a lot and to build your characters well. So I think putting those on the cover makes a lot of sense. I did the same thing with sci-fi. Sci-fi, I have sort of one really, really important viewpoint character on the cover, and then usually a thing also.
Dog alert, dog alert.
We have a live studio audience. It's okay. But, so I like characters and illustrations. Anything to give anything that the artist finds interesting is probably going to the reader is going to find interesting. So talking to the artist is really helpful with that, too.
Yeah, definitely. But I know what you mean. The Game of Thrones, you automatically think of sword and sorcery sort of thing, so you expect those type of symbols on there. You think of Hunger Games, I think of that Katniss person with the bow and the arrows, and it already evokes the imagery in your head even before you open the book up because it's well known. But for the fantasy authors, when they're just getting started, it helps to have a really cool. Like in my case, I write lighthearted fantasy series, and the first cover I did that was custom is I told the artist on Deviantart, saying I'm looking for someone that can draw a dragon sniffing noses with a corgi, and it's very important that the corgi is drawn in playful dog pose, meaning head low, rear up high. And I got an artist that said I can do that, so she got the job, and that was one of my bigger sellers. Yeah, she's over there checking out the front door. So
yeah, mine poodle just had to be banished. That's where I went, was banishing the poodle to the outer darkness where he can bark and pee. So.
But I like working with the author or the covers artist too, because I always like that stage where you can sit there. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. Feel free to expand on that idea if you so choose. So it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
And do you guys want to share for audience who may be wondering and haven't tried to purchase an illustration yet? I don't know if everybody wants to maybe throw out what they've spent for or what they can expect to spend for custom illustration cover art.
The lady that did the cover for me, the first one with the corgi and the dragon, that cover she charged me $150. And then she doesn't do the title graphics. So luckily for me, her husband does title graphics. So he charged me, I think, $35-40 to get the Backing Chronicles and all that, different effects on it, so it looked nice and professional. So mine was about less than $200 for the entire complete cover there. And my wife kept asking me, "Have you sold enough books to justify doing that yet?" I'm like, "Just wait, dear." And then when I first saw, made the book 1 free, and then it blew up, then all of a sudden the sales started coming with book 2, and I was like, "It made its money back, dear." So now she does not complain when I go order the book covers.
As for me, again, my first ones were free because I made them, and then when I got an artist, I went and found an artist that I liked. I didn't put out a call for artists. I searched and found an artist that had stuff that I felt really. There was at least one thing he had drawn which looked like a scene from one of my books. And again, at first I was going to be asking for scenes, so I went for him specifically. And his name is Nick Delagaris, by the way, and he's excellent. He was nominated for an Oscar for something he did with the History Channel. Not an Oscar, but an Emmy. But so I knew he was going to be big ticket, and I had just had my first pop. Pixel of Ink picked me up back when Pixel of Ink was like the king of the hill, and I made $3,000 over the course of a couple of weeks, I think, and then it tapered off to practically nothing. So I had $3,000 that equaled book money. And I asked this guy, and he said that it depends on complexity and how long it takes, and blah blah blah. But he said, the most it would end up costing was $1,000 for each cover. And I was like, well, I got $3,000 and 3 covers, so let's do it. It wasn't that much. It ended up being closer to, I think I paid $700 for the most expensive one. But I sort of had I didn't care if I spent all the money I'd ever made on the books just to make them look good. So it was definitely more expensive than I would have gone for had I not, if I was starting at 0, I wouldn't have commissioned this guy. And you can get excellent artwork that probably, would have sold. I don't know who would sold as many books as has happened, but for $150, $200, I've seen fantastic work. I just picked a guy who I wanted, and I paid what he asked for. So I budget $1,000 for a cover. I don't spend $1,000 for a cover. It's closer to $500 most of the time.
Yeah, I think if you're getting custom illustration for like $150, $200, you're really getting a good deal, especially if this person speaks English and can actually understand what you want. Well, I had that with my first cover I tried. I paid $200, and it was a guy in India, and he did really great work, but we had a hard time coming to the agreement or understanding that the female heroine should not be in like boob armor and, scantily clad.
Yep.
So I still have
female
that
bikini
of her around.
That's
But,
excellent.
And I did want to add, too, I was thinking of when Jeffrey said he was lucky the husband knew the title font kind of stuff, that it is a very specific type of font to make something look like a book. And I didn't really understand that at the beginning. I knew it didn't look right, and the guy didn't really know how to fix it. So now what I do is I get illustrations, and then I have somebody else do the title graphics. And I am paying about $450 right now for my most recent covers, which are illustrated for Republic and Torrent and Thornfall, if anyone wants to check them out. And that's Stephen Bryant. Maybe we can, if we remember, we can put the links to all these guys in there, because I would definitely like to check out the other covers. And Laura, I don't know if you want to talk about what you got it done, because it's obviously it's not custom illustration, but it's very affordable.
I'm sitting here beginning to think I got ripped off. I mean, I went through CreateSpace for mine, and I don't want to say anything negative about them because I ended up with a cover I'm very happy with. I mean, it wasn't at first, but then as soon as I started seeing the books and seeing how people reacted to them and seeing it on the thumbnail, I think they did a really good job for me. The tricky part I had was that my book, it's about a woman whose magical power is that she's immune to magic. And so how do you, it's not like I could put her in a witch's hat or on a broom or, any of those sort of things. And it was also the first book. I mean, a big part of the book is the reveal as she understands, because she comes into the book having no idea about this stuff. She thinks she's going to this little town in Pennsylvania to take over her dad's job as a city attorney and help her brother take care of him because the father has Alzheimer's. And so her first day at work, all of a sudden she realizes that the world is a completely different place from what she always thought it was, and that she's living in this very weird place. So the trick, that was the trick, was trying to present that sense of foreboding without And so I think based on the difficulties of that, I got a good cover. But it's it's stock images, and I got it's you get 2 go rounds, or you have to pay more, and you get 2 changes within each, and so it worked for my current situation. It worked because it was easy. I did it all through CreateSpace. That one-stop shop thing made it very easy for me, and I can afford it right now. And I'm doing the second book that way because it's just, with my personal situation, with my family member I take care of. It just easy is better. I'll pay more money for easy. But boy, I'm really starting to think. I mean, Lindsay, your covers are gorgeous, the latest ones, and Joe, the first one in the book with Deacon is just lovely. I mean, I hadn't even considered illustrations, but God, it's gorgeous. So yeah, so I went with CreateSpace. Like I said, I'm happy with it, but I'm beginning to think that there are significantly other options that might be better that will actually save me some money. So.
Other options exist. Literally, check out that Deviantart, Deviantart.com, and usually when you put in a request for, say, a certain type of book, you always have the artist will always give links to their portfolios, so you can check to see if their style is what you're actually looking for.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to stay with CreateSpace for at least for a while for the consistency in the series for branding purposes, because it is a very consistent look. But I'm working on a project with another author, and it involves superheroes, and so we decided that we want to throw in some money to get a really kick-ass cover. And so, yeah, so Lindsay, we looked at the artists you're using, and we've got a few other people we're looking at, and so anyway, so. Anyone else have any questions, or should I jump in?
I just wanted one more question. Maybe Joe can chime in, since I think he pays a lot more attention to the art and stuff that some of us maybe do. What are your thoughts on the different aspects of different subgenres of fantasy and also science fiction? Like maybe illustrated is great for space opera or epic fantasy, but for urban fantasy, I think I see more of the Photoshop type stuff, and for maybe dystopian sci-fi. I don't know. What do you think about?
I think I agree that the more modern the setting, the better it is to have an actual imagery, actual photos, and like, because the thing with dystopian stuff and with modern stuff is that it's grounded in stuff that we know. So it's not when you think of fantasy and like that, you think of illustration, and like they didn't have photos back then, so you wouldn't see a photo of a wizard, you'd see a drawing of a wizard. But if it's like the Resin Files use illustrations on their cover, and it works because it's fairly heavily fantasy, but at the same time I agree that the more, unless you're going way out sci-fi, like again space opera, then you can use illustration again, because you're going to have stuff that people can't even imagine. But if you're working right, I think that pictures, actual photographs, and effects put on those photographs work particularly well.
All right, cool. Thanks for letting us know. And I have a question for him later on the merchandising stuff, but let's finish up with cover art first, Laura.
Right. You guys all managed to ask a lot of the questions I had. I'm just curious. I haven't mentioned this, but my prior career before this I was a contract attorney. So I'm just curious with working with artists. How does that? I mean. Let me see if I can come up with an actual question out of all this. I'm just curious about tips with working with artists. Do you have agreements with them? Do you enter into contracts? Is it a handshake sort of thing? How do you handle that? How do you memorialize it, basically?
It's happened in a couple different ways with different artists. Some artists will have a contract, and we read the contract carefully before you sign it. Other artists, this is particularly true now, is like you tend to do business with an artist through an email chain, and the email chain sort of produces a list of things that you wanted, things that they wanted, information about what you're allowed to use it for and whatnot. So a lot of artists will just treat the email thread as the contract, and then sort of the invoice as the signature, which is again okay as long as everything's been discussed and established in there. But the way I work with artists is if there isn't a contract, I want to make sure I know exactly what rights I have and what rights they have to the artwork. Like I'm allowed to promote my covers belong to me for promotion purposes. If I'm not making any money off of the art specifically, I can use it for whatever. I can print up posters and hand them out. I can print up postcards and hand them out. I can make wallpapers and stuff. That's all fine. But the moment that I charge for the item itself, then that's no longer covered under the original contract, and that's always the case because it's very expensive to get rights for, like, universal rights for imagery. So sharing, and that's always discussed separately because I find most artists don't want to share profit because I'm sure most artists don't expect you to make any money, and they're just for free. So I bought the merchandise rights for one of my covers, the first one. I haven't made any merchandise with it yet, but I have. It'll come along. But yeah, like most of the time, either there is a pretty strict contract where they'll talk about when you need to pay them by, when they'll have it available for you, and what happens if you don't pay them quickly enough or they don't have it early enough, and they're allowed to do. Or that will all have been discussed in the email, and they'll just say, we agreed to this.
Okay. So you make sure to get everything, because one of the pitfalls I think a lot of newer writers fall into is that you get so excited about the project, and like this collaboration thing I'm working on, the other author is an attorney, and so we sent a few emails back and forth saying, oh, what if we did this, and what if we did that, and then about the fourth round of emails, she's like, okay, we have to, it was right up to the point where I was like, we have to deal with this. And so we're talking about the contract now before we really go any further in putting the project together. But a lot of new writers seem to really, and a lot of established, well, maybe not established successful writers who I think figure this out, but it seems like there's a lot of people that are willing to go on a vague kind of email and a handshake, and it's it seems to me to be a very dangerous path to go, and that's my editorializing on it. So there was another question I wanted to ask you. It might be related to merchandising. Let me see.
I can chime in real quick with regards to that last question. One of the things I actually do with the lady that did my covers there is I told her right up front that I need to have full rights over this thing here, and then she agreed. She was just trying to get her name out there as well, and so she said that she'll retain the right to display the image in her own gallery, her own portfolio. But it's my picture, and I can do whatever I want to do with it. And I drew up a little thing there that says, she acknowledges she created this picture for me. I can use it as I see fit. I own the picture, but she has the right to display it. I said I'm fine with that. So there are artists that are willing to do that.
Yeah, and that's my take with contracts is as long as it's clear, as long as you both understand what the expectations are, and if a third party has to come in, the third party can figure out what the expectations are. I can live with that. So, but I think you guys handled all the questions I had about the artwork itself. So I had some more general ones. One of the things I'm really curious about is you just transitioned from your day job to being a full-time writer.
Yep.
How's that been? Has that been what you expected it, or has it been surprises, or?
It's been good. I mean, it's nice because this is my office, so I have the big TV back there. But that's also a problem because you have to sort of not look at the big TV. That's why it's behind me, so that my computer is in front of me and I can't be looking at my TV when I'm typing. But surprises. It turns out there's a lot of stuff when you're wrapping up your old job that I kind of forgot about. I knew about health insurance, and I got all that squared away. But rolling over a 401k is something I have to learn about, rolling it into an IRA. And the biggest thing I ran into is how really difficult it is to start acting like you are at work. Like, your brain says, oh, I'm home. It's the weekend. Let me do weekend things. I shouldn't be working right now. It's the weekend. And I used to write on the weekend, so that's nice. I do that. But then I'll be like, well, I should do some chores, and to get up and do chores and stuff. Like, you sort of forget, no, you have 8 hours. You used to do 8 hours working your old job. You should do at least 4 hours working this nice new job you have. So the schedule I really need to hammer down. And also, there's no reason to leave the house anymore. And I need to sort of make reasons to leave the house. Like, I don't even have a dog. I don't walk dogs. So you find yourself like, man, I haven't been out of the house in 4 days. I'm going to be the creepy guy in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
And that old myth about working in your pajamas, no, you got to get dressed every day. I've been self-employed a few times, and man, you got to get dressed every day, because otherwise you'll lose your mind really quickly.
So I still have an alarm that goes off every morning. I have the luxury of deciding if I'm going to get up when it goes off, which is nice. But like you hammer it, you sort of have to be. You say, well, I'm my own boss. You actually have to be a boss. You have to say, hey, get to work. So I knew that was going to come along. I didn't realize how hard it would be to get on there. And the thing that's hard is I don't live alone. This is my section of the house, but I have my brother and his wife, my sister-in-law, live with me. And during the day, he works at night, so he's home during the day too. And he'll walk through the room and be like, "Hey, listen, Joe, I'm trying to build a bench. You want to help me out?" Like, "Yeah, sure. Let's do woodworking now." And you go walk away and you do 6 hours of woodworking. And like, "Oh, crap! I was trying to hit 5,000 words today." So. Yeah, but I'm slowly falling into the groove. I'm working my way up to the word counts I was hoping for.
Well, congratulations, because that's kind of the dream everyone has. So,
Yeah.
The other, let's see, we talked about Well, we talked about the art. I'm just curious on marketing though. What other things? I mean, kind of what's your best practices? What works best for you? What hasn't worked? What are your thoughts on how to proceed with the marketing?
Marketing, I like to try just about anything that's not going to annoy people. I try to avoid annoying people. So like, I'll have if there's a new I like advertising. I have had very little success with advertising, so I'm leaning further and further away from it, except for BookBub. And I will. I like to build a community. I have not tremendous amount of success with that either, but I like to be available. My overall opinion of marketing the books is that you and your books should be available everywhere where someone wants them to be. So I don't like exclusivity. I never go exclusive anywhere. Once I did a timed exclusive where something was available 2 weeks early through one place. But overall, if you don't have a Kindle, I still want you to be able to read my book. If you don't go on Facebook, I still want you to be able to talk to me. So if I find a lot of people are asking me to join something that doesn't seem to make sense to me as a book promotion thing, I'll get on there anyway. I got on Instagram, and I'll share fan art on Instagram. Pinterest I just got on too. I'll start doing it on there too. So my overall marketing philosophy is just available for everybody as easily as possible. And the only one that I haven't been able to make that work with is Google Play. Google Play has got the whole pricing dilemma that I haven't been able to solve yet.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Could you talk about that a little bit? Because I've heard a little bit about that.
The way that Amazon works, Amazon wants to have the lowest price.
Right.
So Amazon will price match. And that's the way you get a perma-free book, is by making it free someplace that is not Amazon, and then Amazon will price match. The problem with Now, what's nice is Smashwords distributes to a lot of places that have the agency model, which says what you say the book costs is what the book costs. There is no discounting. Google Play is one of the holdouts that will still discount books. Okay. So if you put your stuff up for $2.99, which is what I priced almost all of my books at, that's a popular price because it's the lowest price that Amazon will allow you to get a 70% royalty with. So if you're trying to get a cheap book but still make a fair amount of money, $2.99 is a very popular price point. If you go down to $2.98, you'll be making 1/2 as much money.
Right.
So if you're on Google Play and Google Play discounts your book by 1 cent, you'll be making half as much money on Amazon. And the worst part is, it's very slow trickle in one direction and very slow trickle in the other, and other price matching sites might get involved, and your price might not return to one where you can make money for a long time. So the two solutions I've heard of, neither of which I've attempted yet. One is if you're a series writer, do an omnibus version of your series that is only available on Google Play. So then it's a book that doesn't matter what the price is, because if it's price matched, it can't be price matched elsewhere because it's not available elsewhere.
It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah, so they can't. It's a different book, and it's not going to cause price problems. The other one is to make your book cost twice as much on Google, and then when they discount it, start to calibrate the price on Google so that the discounted price is roughly the same as what it is everywhere else, and that just
That
strikes
sounds
me
like
as
a
being,
pain in the ass. Yeah.
it would be it's annoying for you, and it's like got to be frustrating for the fans, because it's like, wait, just because I happen to want to read it on my built-in app on my Android, I have to pay twice as much, or I have to pay 7 cents more because that's as close as you could get. Like, yeah, so I haven't
Yeah.
found a satisfactory. I'll probably do the omnibus version because I'm all series mostly.
Okay, because I wondered what the difference was, because I kept hearing people saying, "Oh, Google will just change your prices," and I thought, well, how can they do that? I didn't realize that they were doing the wholesale model versus the agency
Yeah.
model. So, okay. So, what about social media? I mean, I guess you talked a little bit. You talked about Instagram and do you Twitter and Facebook? I've seen your Facebook page, so I know you do that. So
I got Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Deviantart. I'm fairly active on Deviantart, although it's not really a social network. I am on Tumblr now. I like Tumblr. Tumblr is like, it's as fast as Twitter, but not as small as Twitter. And yeah, you can do longer words. You can do lots of pictures and video and all that stuff. So Tumblr is nice. I'm not very well followed on Tumblr, but it's still handy. And now Instagram and Pinterest. I will go on any social network that people want to talk to me on.
Okay. Okay, because you mentioned briefly that you didn't think. I thought you said that you didn't think you were good at community building, but looking at your Facebook page and your website, it seemed to me that you do quite a good job of it. Seems like you have a group of loyal fans.
There's a handful, particularly on Facebook. I got people who chime in every time, which is very nice. I used to get a lot of comments on my site, but my site's sort of fallen into disrepair. It's about to get overhauled, so I have not been maintaining the comment section as well as I used to. But it's a small group of active people. I would like a large group to happen someday.
Well, they say the small group of active people can do as much for you as like a large group of people who are kind of meh. So, all right.
You want to jump into the merchandise?
Yeah, I think it's time to talk about merchandising. I want to hear the saga of the dragon plush.
Yeah. All right. So here's the big story. Yeah, I have a character in my trilogy named Min, the dragon, and everyone loves dragons, and everyone loves Min. I get more comments and stuff about Min than all the other characters combined. So I knew if I was going to make something, it was going to be Min. I asked around, and people wanted a plush, so I started working on it. And first, I found an artist who said that she could do it, and then she took my money and then didn't do it. I could probably complain and get my money back eventually, but I sort of hold out that eventually I'll just have a spare plush around. Like, she'll actually get to it. I did a little bit more thorough research, and I found somebody who could do it. And but I didn't want to start with Min because I didn't know if she was going to do a good job, and I didn't want to invest this money. And I wanted to have a practice plush. So I have the sci-fi books. The sci-fi books have another cute character. You'll find if you read my stuff, there tends to be a cute character. And that was a cross between a fox and a skunk called a funk, which is named it was specifically named for pun potential. And I made that. This was made by here we go. There's our that's Solby the Funk. And that was made by Bubble Rhapsody Designs. I don't know if it's probably backwards. But
yeah, I can sort of see it.
She did a fantastic job, so I knew that I was going to use her for the actual plush. So I got her to do one of Min, and it looks like this. That's Min. Came out fantastic. People love it, but the problem is, it turns out, this costs, I think it was $150. And obviously no one's going to pay $150 for this, but this one was handmade. So surely if I get them mass-produced, they'll be cheaper. The problem is, I know I'm not going to sell 1,000 of these things.
Yeah.
And that is, a manufacturer won't talk to you for less than 1,000 of these things.
Right.
So if you want to have them done in smaller numbers, then they're going to be made in not mass production, and it's going to cost more. So something this size was still going to cost, if I had it done, and it's fairly complex. You can see it's got these, like ribs down here and stuff. Like if I was going to get this made, people were going to be paying like $60 a piece, and I don't think anyone's going to pay $60 for this, even though it looks awesome.
Yeah.
So I sat on it for a while, and then I decided, well, maybe if I make it really small, and the same artist who made that one, she makes versions called Derpies. So she made this little version. Woo! And I was like, maybe people would buy it, and that would I could probably charge $20. It's not big.
Yeah,
I don't think I
yeah.
could pay $20 for that, but that didn't stop me from making one of these too. So I
Aw.
got 2 of those, and
They're very cute.
I love them. I got stuffed animals all around my house. I'm 31 years old, but so I still couldn't find any way to make any of this economical
Yeah.
for the batches. I want like maximum 200. I'd prefer if I could get 15 or 20.
Yeah, well, good luck
And the
with
saga continues. I don't have it yet. It's probably in the mail right now, but there's a 3rd version of Min that has been made that is a simpler version of this one. Same size,
that.
but not as complex.
Right.
And I have spoken to somebody who says that they can hand make a couple of dozen of them, and we'll see. So the saga continues with the merchandise that way. And that's not the only merchandise I tried to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what else have you worked on?
I've gone so far as actually talking to printers to have posters made, because you can have print-on-demand posters and they're good, but you can get them way cheaper if you have them printed.
Right.
And you can think, honestly, for $500, you can probably get 1,000 posters from an actual print shop. And then I envisioned just having stacks and stacks of posters around my house for the rest of my life. I didn't do it. So I might go on demand with that, which I own the rights for my first cover. And then I started thinking about, this is one that technology is about to catch up. I was thinking about figurines, because 3D printers, I own a 3D printer.
Yeah.
I don't have any 3D printed stuff around me right now, but I do own a 3D printer, and I have 3D printed a fair amount. So I decided I was going to commission some figurines that I might one day be able to mass produce, and so the dragon was first. And I love
nice.
this is one of my favorite things I own. It's
Cool.
This is Lelia's Clay Creations made this for me, and because she did such a good job, I started getting her to do other stuff for me. So I had to make another funk. This is not the same funk. This is Squee. This is the female funk.
Oh, I like that one better, actually.
And then I like this. This is. I think this might be my favorite sculpture that I had made. It's like there's even this little bandage on the back of the neck, which is plot. It's plot relevant. I mean, she's wearing earrings and stuff, like details. And then when I released the prequel to the Book of Deacon books, there's a character in it that was on the cover, and she basically made a figurine version of the cover. So I'm hoping at some point in the near future. Well, maybe not the near future, but at some point in the future, I'm going to be able to get people to download or maybe print out their own or have print-on-demand figurines. They exist, but they're in like in the $80 range, and I think once they get down to like the $50 or $20 range, then people might actually buy them. And when that day comes, I will be prepared. I'll just 3D scan in my stuff, and they'll laugh at me now with my pile of toys that no one wants, but gosh darn it.
You'll be the market leader.
Then I can be sitting there like a Bond villain. Like, yeah. You all know. So, yeah. I mean, I get tons of regular art too, but I'm not selling any of that. That's just for my own. That's just to get fans excited. Little statistics for you. It seems like about 5 times as many people are interested in images that you put up on the Facebook page as opposed to anything else.
Yeah.
If I put up a link, nobody cares. If I put up a picture, even if it's a picture, if it's a piece of fan art that's not like professional quality, people flip out about it because they recognize it and they start commenting on it. So I commission art fairly regularly just to get people talking.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you've got an awful lot of art on your website, which is it's fun to look at, and yesterday on my personal Facebook page I put up a selfie of me drinking a glass of wine at the supermarket wine bar. And I must have had 37 people and 18 more people give comments. And just like
it's
a bad picture of me drinking a glass of wine.
As soon as it's a picture, people are all about it. I really the value of images with your social media stuff. I got to learn to always have a picture, even if it's a repeat of something in the past, just something appropriate for the comment that I'm making.
Right. Right. So is there any other merchandise that you've worked on? Looked at coffee mugs, keychains, T-shirts, anything like that?
I haven't rolled it out yet, but I have a Zazzle storefront, which will eventually be able to produce T-shirts and mugs and all that good stuff. And we'll see how that goes. Early on, There was a fan who made jewelry. She made pendants that had the mark of the chosen, which is fairly important in the series. And she sold 3 of them. I didn't get one.
Yeah.
So 3 fans out there are the only people who own these pendants. But so that was the thing. And I'm trying to work on other stuff, but like a comic. Not for this like an original storyline comic. I've been collaborating with somebody on that, but the art is the hard part and the writing is the easy part. So I blasted through my portion, and it's going to take him 4 years to do his portion, which is understandable.
So yeah, we were, and someone had, Lindsay, it might have been you on our Facebook page where we talk about all this stuff, had mentioned if the merchandising actually is a meaningful source of additional revenue, or it sounds like you're still at the very early stages of it.
I have not had any merchandise success, but I think that at the very least, like if you pursue artwork stuff, and like if 2 years from now I have to go back to work and I never write another book, I still have this figurine, and people will look at it and say, well, what the heck is that thing? And it's the only one in the entire world. And I could be like, oh yeah, I once made enough money that I could just decide, yeah, I want to have a half fox, half skunk sitting on my desk. We're going to call it a funk. I'll get a bunch of them, and the name of a group of funks is a parliament. And it's like, that's how things work. There was a time in my life when I could do that. Parliament of Funk.
Oh, that's funny. So, let's see. I've hit all the questions that I had. I mean, just in terms of what we're talking about. I do have one final question for you, though, that I'm always interested in with writers, Joe, and that is plotter or pantser?
I started off as a pantser, and that's how I ended up with a book that was 900 pages. So I started plotting just so that I would have an end point, as opposed to just wandering around until I ran out of things to do. So nowadays, with the exception sometimes of NaNoWriMo, when I don't have time for that, I usually at least come up with a beginning, a middle, and an end, so that I will know, okay, well that should hopefully take less than 200,000 words to say.
Okay.
So I like to plot now, but I have pantser roots.
Okay. So you're not like the full-blown, I know some people that are like, every scene is plotted and you know where every button. So it sounds like you're doing more of a free-form
I make
plotting.
a dotted line and connect the dots.
Structured pantsing.
Yeah, if the characters decide they want to do something else, then I usually let them wander away, and I'll try to follow them and coax them back toward, point B once they wander too far off.
Yeah, they do often do their own thing sometimes. So you're just like, where the hell did that come from?
One of the best loved characters named Ma, who is an AI. She literally was supposed to be a gag. It was supposed to be a talking doorbell that people didn't realize was actually, understanding and thinking. And 4 lines. She was supposed to be like a sassy little gag. And people, it was so fun to write for that character, and so many people connected with it after they read the book, that she is essentially the second star of the second book. She is the other lead. So again, this was supposed to be a throwaway gag that I let it wander off and grow into its own thing, and now technically, that would be a plot point. I can't say that.
I have a character in Impervious who just kept coming back to life. I kept trying to kill him, and he's just like, no. And now he's got a big part in the second book. He's just like, I'm not dying, forget it.
Can I ask one last question for Joe there on the?
Sure, yeah.
Seems like the one thing I was thinking of maybe doing with the custom illustrations is you kind of talked about having to get the artist's permission. What are your thoughts on maybe doing prints where maybe the artist signed it and you signed it, and selling them? Is that something I'm curious how you could actually make a profit from merchandising your own stuff. Unfortunately, I don't have any cute animals in my stories, so I have a talking sword. I don't know, maybe I can do that, but any thoughts on that?
I think selling prints is fantastic. The only technically I have had some merchandise success. I have paperbacks, obviously, and over there you can see them. I got bins full of paperbacks, and I do sell autographed copies on my site. So I think autographed prints, particularly because it'd be cheaper, they're cheap to ship, they're cheap to produce. I think that you could probably have a fair amount of success with that, especially if you have a really good cover. And if it's if people really like the book and they want to have it on their wall, I asked people when I was getting ready for the poster, do you want just the artwork or do you want the whole book cover treatment with the text? They wanted to hang my book cover on their wall.
Yeah.
So I think that if you have a good connection with the readers and you have really interesting artwork, then you could totally sell prints, especially if they're autographed.
Yeah,
I
Lindsay,
have
your
autographed
covers.
stuff on my wall.
Yeah. Well, especially that cover for Republic. I mean, I'd totally buy a poster. That is beautiful.
Cool. Well, thank you. That'll definitely give me something to think about. Any questions from Jeffrey before we go?
I think you guys have all covered them.
And it looks like we're just about near the end. So next week, who are we talking to next week? Jeffrey, you're in Disneyland.
We're talking to you, Laura. Although I won't be here, but.
So somebody else has to be the announcer. I'm not really sure I can announce my own interview.
All right. Well,
I
we'll
can.
figure it
I mean,
out.
it's not a problem. But,
We'll argue about it for a while.
if one of you guys don't, take over, it's going to become the Laura show, just so you know. All right. Well, great. So just a quick, we have a website, which is www.marketingsff.com. And that has a link to our last podcast. I'm assuming we'll put a link up to this one. It's brand new. We've still got a lot of sort of pardon our dust messages all over the place, but we're going to try to get, we've got links to all our websites and Facebook and things like that. We're working on bios. Jeffrey put out the call for biographies that we can put up there. And I assume we're going to get to a point we need to start putting in show notes and links, and so yeah, we're still working on it. So
I think what we ought to do too, someone else mentioned, we should take, if you can, send me all the links to your artists if
Yeah.
they have a presence, and I will put the link on there as well. I think it'd be a good idea if someone was interested, like, okay, who did my cover? Who did Joe's covers? Who did your covers and Lindsay's covers? So.
And on the off chance there's somebody actually watching us live, I'm not really sure we're there yet. If there's something that you guys would like to see on the website, if there's an author you'd like us to try to talk to, if there's a topic you're interested in, email us. I'm assuming the contact info is on, well, I'm assuming there must be contact info on the website, is there?
See, I don't know if we, you know what, I don't think we have email addresses up there yet. We've got like the Facebooks, we've got like our main official websites, which has ways to contact us. But yeah, we can certainly put our email.
And aren't there ways to ask questions as we go along, like in
right,
live?
Right. Once someone logs in,
over here.
Yeah, there's a little chat box that pops up there that you can type a question to.
Yeah, 'cause I have chat 2 new messages showing up, but they may very well just be friends of mine saying, "What the hell are you doing?"
I think that's me trying to talk to you over on the side.
Ah, yeah. Oh, the face. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's
I shut the face follow thing off. I swear to God, I did, and it's still doing it. So, I don't know.
Anyway, let's close this off. Can we have Joe give the site and where people can find them, and then we'll cut it off for people?
Okay.
Okay. My website is bookofdeacon.com, and if you search for JRLALLO on almost any any social media site, you'll probably find me. That's me. So I'll be on Twitter and Tumblr and like that under JRLALLO. And that's it.
All right. Great.
Okay. So gonna cut off the air now. See everybody next time.
All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.